Welcome to Around the Lakes, the podcast where your hosts, Elliott Smith and Emerson Eads, take one great work of music and walk around it, historically, sonically, and spiritually, with the friends who helped them discover it. Find them on Facebook at Around the Lakes and online at aroundthelakes.org. If you like the show, like them, follow them, and tell a friend. That's how we keep this thing going. Thanks for taking this walk around the lakes.
Hi, Elliott.
Emerson, how are you?
It's so good to see you. I think when I think back about our time in graduate school, one of the things that really, made the experience so much more bearable in some ways and fruitful were those walks around St. Joseph and St. Mary's Lake. Because in those times we were able to synthesize the stuff that we were going through. We were able to talk about the things we were excited about, and we were also able to reflect on the things that we were going through in our lives with, faith and love and music. And so these walks around the lake were something that I wanted to make happen again and again. And the problem with graduate school is you leave and you've got to maintain contact somehow. And this, in some ways, was a way for us to maintain that relationship that started in graduate school at the University of Notre Dame.
Grad school is such a transient experience. And of course, going into a program like the University of Notre Dame, we're going into a program with a lot of academic expectations, musical expectations. Both of us at that time being in our 30s, life issues that are going on as well. And the walks around the lake were some of the most healing and transformational experiences that I had. It was the real life laboratory where all of the things that we were learning in class and through rehearsals came to be worked out for me in a lot of ways. And you're right, the hardest part about an experience like that is saying goodbye. And we've maintained to be able to keep up our friendship over these years via the phone and everything, but trying to recreate those moments is something that I really am excited about doing again, because it was certainly one of the most important parts of those 3 years for me.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I'm hoping that this podcast will be is an opportunity for us to talk about the great music that we love, but also how it interacts and refracts with our lives, our personal lives. One of the things that I absolutely adored about you in graduate school was your ability to collaborate with anybody. And because of that, you were asked to do all the things that you were asked to do as an accompanist, as a director, as a, everything. And it was, I think it's easy in those times of pressure to not mull over the beauty that you're actually getting to experience. And so I hope that this podcast Around the Lakes can be, a rehashing of what music means to you, what music means to me, and then that inspiration that happens when you say something that connects with me that I've never thought of. And I'm just really excited about the idea that we're going to have a chance to take other people on this journey around the lake with us. So
yeah, because that's something that never happened. We
Right,
never. I was thinking back. We never had a walk around the lake with any extra person.
Right.
It was always just the two of us.
Yeah.
So I think bringing in others to kind of for maybe a Catholic image, since this was at Notre Dame, kind of a pilgrimage on the road along with us is a great concept.
Yeah, and I remember when we were walking around, we would people would come into our conversations that were faculty, that were colleagues, and it was as if they were there accompanying us in some ways, because their presence was very felt and their impact was very felt. So yeah, the idea that we can continue doing this and continue doing it together is something that really is meaningful to me.
Well, and I think too, something you said, in the pressure cooker of an academic program, you can miss the beauty that's really there. And I'm sure you share this sentiment. The 3 years we were there were some of the most difficult of my life, at least. But when I look back on it, I don't remember the bad times. I remember the beauty of the campus, the sincerity of that student body that you and I both had the privilege of teaching. You worked with opera, and I taught music theory. And the concerts that we would put on after 3 weeks of rehearsals, the first one being the Howells Requiem, we showed up, and that's the first thing out of the gate is we've got 12 hours to learn this and perform it. And I find myself longing some days desperately to get back to that place, and I know that it's gone. You know, those people are gone. If we went back to the campus today, it wouldn't be the same, because it was those people, those faculty that made it what it was. But it's just, I hope, an opportunity for people to stop and think about the beauty that's around us today, because I don't want to go through the rest of my life going through seasons, in some ways loathing them, only to look back and be like, that was actually a great season. I want to try to find a way to see the beauty in the seasons as I'm walking them. So I think this is a way to do it.
Well, welcome to the very first episode of Around the Lakes. If you're here, you probably already love music, and maybe you play or you conduct, or maybe you have a piece that's followed you around for years and years, and never really known why. But we're excited to invite you on this journey with us around the lakes.
I currently live in Greenville, South Carolina. I was born and raised there. Left after college and spent 13 years in the Midwest, and I worked as a pianist, as a conductor, coach, pretty much anything musical, including playing keyboards and rock bands. I've kind of done all of it, but I've landed back in Greenville, and I'm a high school teacher. I teach at the South Carolina Governor's School for the Arts and Humanities, which is a residential high school. It's a unique program in a lot of ways. We have about 70 music majors in our program, and I teach a chamber choir. I teach an all music major choir, music theory, class piano, and then just anything in between, really. I also am a dad to a beautiful girl who's about to turn 11, and I have a outstanding wife who's a mental health worker. She's a therapist and an artist. So I'm really very fortunate to be where I am. And I've spent a whole life in music. I fell in love with music through Mr. Rogers, actually, when I was 4 years old, and I don't remember the incident, but my mom and dad said I screamed just frenetically. They thought somebody had broken into the house, and they ran into the room, and I asked my dad, I said, "What is this playing?" And it was The Storm from Beethoven's Sixth Symphony. And I was 4 years old. And I don't remember that, but I do remember how I felt. And I felt overwhelmed that sound could make me feel the way that I felt. And my request for my birthday that year, it was not a car, it wasn't a Ninja Turtle, it was a recording of that symphony. And
that's the Elliott I know.
And I had it, and if I remember right, it was Leonard Bernstein with the Vienna Philharmonic. And
good taste.
That was my start. And from there, I started piano lessons and jokingly went through seasons. I remember having the concerto year where I just bought as many concertos as I could. I had the Beethoven Piano Sonata year. And I really couldn't get enough of it. And when I was about 15, I asked my mom, I said, I grew up very, very strict Southern Baptist. So I felt guilty for wanting a vocation in the arts. But I remember asking my mom, I said, "Do you think I can pray and ask God to make me a conductor?" And I knew at 15 years old that that's where I wanted to be.
Wow.
And I've ended up there in a very non-traditional route. And you'll hear in subsequent episodes kind of how my path was very circuitous of how I actually ended up as a conductor. But that's really me in probably a little more than 2 minutes. But that's a snapshot of me as a musician in my life.
Yeah.
How about you?
Well, I am the director of choral studies here at Southern Illinois University. And in some ways, being in the studios here at WSIU, it's like coming home in a way, because the Alaska KUAC-FM was my introduction to classical music. I lived out in the middle of nowhere in Delta Junction, Alaska, and my only access to the Metropolitan Opera broadcasts or Performance Today, Fred Child, was through public radio. And so here we are, and it's just, it's in some ways it's like going home. But my parents were both musicians, and so I fell in love. I loved choir in high school, but I was headed towards law school because the O.J. Simpson trial was happening at the time, and
I remember
I was headed to law school. Read all the books, Robert Shapiro and F. Lee Bailey and all the law I could get my hands around, and did debate too in high school. But I had a high school teacher. Her name was Lael, and one day she asked me to come up and lead warm-ups in high school. And
was she the one that sang for your mass? Did I meet her?
No, yeah, she was there at my mass.
Okay.
Yes. She invited me up to lead warm-ups, and I got up there, and I started imitating exactly what she did, just to get a laugh. And looking back on it, I'm just, I feel terrible about it. But I got a laugh. The choir just roared with laughter because I rocked up on my heels and did these like swoopy gestures with my arms, and everyone started laughing. And instead of like sending me out of class or doing some sort of disciplinary thing, she just completely let it go. And the next day in choir, she said, "Emerson, would you come up and conduct For Unto Us a Child is Born?" Because we were doing the Messiah at the time. And so I got up there, and I remember the piano introduction happens, and then the sopranos come in. And when the sopranos came in, I was like, I've got to do this. This is amazing. And Lael knew that. Lael knew there was something in my heart that was a musician, and she went after it. And to this day, she came to our wedding. back in Minot, North Dakota, and helped us purchase a piano. Anyway, that relationship from high school is really, I think, what lit a fire under me, and and then I ended up at the University of Notre Dame, and I looked around and I saw all these smart, intelligent people that were crazy talented like yourself, and I immediately asked, why am I here, and what am I doing here? And some of that is that what is it when you're feeling like you're not big enough to walk in somebody's shoes? Imposter syndrome. Yeah. And if anyone out there that's listening to this has experienced that, that there is some validation, there is some valid points to your sense of inadequacy, and there are also just invalid, the weight of being so self-aware. And I think Notre Dame being there with you, honestly, was a terrific way for me to interact with people who were both supportive and loving and collaborative. And so I'm just so excited to be able to do this in a public radio station. And here we are. We both have doctorates, but we both feel like we probably should have done a whole lot more schooling too, right? I mean, I don't feel like, I feel like when we talk and you tell me something that you just said something today about the C minor mass, and I was, oh my gosh, I should have been reading the thesis, but there's just
I think that is part of. I've even told my high school group, you go into a program like that, and I felt like I would finish and feel complete. And I remember the day after I defended my thesis, I woke up and the same doubts and insecurities and everything followed me right through it.
Yeah.
But I think what it did is it just opened up an enormous curiosity. And that's where I, just besides your great humor and your friendship, I feel like that's something that I've always appreciated about you. I felt a kindred spirit that I feel like we're both really curious about not only music, but the implications of what's behind it and how can it really, as Pier Paolo would say, our wonderful music history professor, how can it really change the world? So I'm thrilled as well.
So anyone who's listening right now will, if you haven't been to the University of Notre Dame, you probably want to know something about the lakes themselves. Mm-hmm. I really don't know anything about the lakes themselves other than the fact that they're named after St. Joseph and St. Mary. And the St. Joseph one is bigger and the St. Mary is smaller.
I don't know. And to be honest, this is, I'm a little embarrassed to say this on air. I don't even know which one we walked around. I remember.
Well, it takes a little under an hour, I thought, to walk around those lakes. But yeah, we would just, if we weren't finished talking about whatever we were talking about, we'd just keep right on trudging, and we'd go around that other lake. But yeah, we certainly didn't, let's meet at St. Mary's Lake, or let's meet at St. Joseph Lake. It was just, we're headed to the lakes.
We're usually going out of class frustrated with something or a lesson or a rehearsal, and we would say, want to go walk around the lake.
So you talked a little bit about your trajectory going to Notre Dame,
Mm-hmm.
I think we both were extremely impacted by all the faculty there. I mean, all the faculty that we had were astonishingly brilliant, extremely successful, and actually were really impacting personally too. And they took an interest in us individually. But one stands out from the group, and she was our mentor, Carmen Helena Tellez, a Venezuelan powerhouse in music.
And the arts in general.
Yeah, I mean, you just told me today that she was an artist, and I never saw her art.
I didn't either.
She was very private about it. But I don't. She's not in the room with us today. She's recently passed. How were you impacted by Carmen?
Oh, Carmen. Carmen was such a, looking back, I think for both of us, a maternal figure as well as a professor. And I lost my mom in 2009, so there's always kind of been a hole there, and it wasn't that I was in any way looking to have that replaced, but she just had such a nurturing spirit, but I think possibly the most comprehensive musician I've ever encountered. Really somebody that could sit across from you having coffee and could equally talk about a Beethoven piano sonata, a Mahler symphony, a Penderecki string quartet, a Stravinsky opera, a Ligeti choral work, and not just talk about them, but open them up to you in a way that you felt like she understood them so deeply. And really inspired me to be, her whole thing was the interdisciplinary artist. And I guess I'm still a little, traditional may not be the right word. I haven't crossed over into really doing an interdisciplinary project, but her constant search for truth and new musical ideas really transformed the way that I teach. I feel I want to be an artist that's constantly learning. And I think one of the most transformative conversations I ever had with her, it was our first year, and you had gone back to Alaska for a work obligation. So the way that Notre Dame worked, we had recitals set up, and this is just talking to the broader audience. But our first year, there was a Vatican group that came and had some manuscripts, and it was the Vatican Library. And my recital was part of that conference. And I did the Vivaldi Magnificat in G minor. I did a beautiful setting of, I believe, Psalm 51 by Scarlatti and some other works, the Josquin motet. And I had just a deplorable dress rehearsal. And I was and it wasn't the participants. I just felt like I failed as an artist. I couldn't get the things to work the way I was wanting them to work. And there was a restaurant off campus, and I can't remember the name of it, but she said, "Elliott, let's go have a meal." And of course, she paid for everything. And we sat at that table and went page by page through the whole rehearsal. And at the end, she got kind of angry at me, and she said, "Elliott, this concert," and I'll do it in her accent because it just makes it more, she goes, "Elliott, this concert is not about you." And I thought,
That's beautiful.
she's really right. Why am I doing this? Am I doing this concert for myself or to bring a little glimpse of heaven into the present. And I went out the next day and felt so at ease and engaged with the program, and I really needed to hear that. I think as conductors, we can easily believe that it's about us, our vision, our career. I think even one point I was having trouble getting a tempo that I wanted, and she was like, the moment will give you the tempo. Just take it. And that really stuck with me. And how she was able to have both sides, I guess, kind of a yin and yang of artistic integrity, but also willingness to let the moment dictate decisions. And I mean, you'll remember, we didn't dare go into a lesson without a decision.
No.
We needed to have a decision for every phrasing we did, every articulation. Why did you choose that? But as long as she knew that the homework had been done, if the moment gave us something different, she felt like you needed to take that moment. I believe that's how I interpreted it.
Yeah.
But just what a fantastic lady of culture and class, and humor and resilience, and I feel so honored that every time I conduct, I feel like she's with me a bit, and I do feel like she's here through us.
I do too,
and
I feel her in the bad times too, like no, yelling from the back of the room. I can feel that when I forget something, I forget a cue, or I can just hear her voice. But one of the things that really blows me away about Carmen was her studio. All of us were so different. I mean, stylistically, and all hard-headed, all very opinionated. Looking at all of my colleagues, we just weren't like. She didn't make us in her image, I guess is what I'm saying.
No, not at all.
She allowed each of us to take our own ideas and go with them in a way that was also very scrupulous and intense, because she didn't want us just to take our way because we had a good idea, or because she wanted us to know what came before that piece and what came after that piece, and what the scholars said about that piece, and then to make the decisions, the musical decisions. And I think that's one of the things that stands out about her contribution at the University of Notre Dame. All of us are doing very, very different things. I mean, not all of us are conducting choirs. Some of us are, cathedral organists. Some are, but we're all doing what we love, and we all feel her fingerprints in our life. I think one of the most beautiful things that after she died, when we went to her to the funeral, the remembrance service that we had at the University of Notre Dame. I think her sister or one of her family members gave out, because she had thousands of scarves. Like, that was her thing, was scarves. And they individually wrapped and labeled where these scarves were from, what they were made of, what it was called, and gave one of her scarves to each of us. And my wife, Abby, framed for a birthday present, probably one of the best birthday presents I've ever gotten, framed a picture of Carmen. And it's a picture I took on my iPhone of her walking in Mexico City. And it's a beautiful picture of her. And and then that picture of us at the Chilean winery, and she has her dad's cowboy hat on.
Emiliana.
Yeah, it's just it's a glorious picture, and then the scarf is in that frame as well, and with the label. Anyway, it was I guess it shows the sort of multifaceted person that she was, and in rehearsals too. I remember, and we'll probably do this from time to time. For those of you that are listeners, we'll probably keep going back to memories of our time with Carmen, because now that she's not here, we kind of have to keep bringing it up because she is so much here in so many ways. But in rehearsals with her, she would not be looking at a score. She would not have a score with us, doing the most, from anything from Stravinsky's Symphony of Psalms to Howells' Requiem to Mass for the Oppressed. She would not use a score. And she would say, in the middle of the rehearsal, "Stop! Go back to measure 44. Go back to the A minor chord at the beginning of the exposition." She knew exactly what was going on. So anyway, as we go through this podcast around the lakes, the idea is that we're going to select a piece of music that we're going to go in depth on. One of the things that's incredible about any great piece of music is that you can attack it from so many different avenues and uncover so much about it, from a conductor's perspective, from a performer's perspective, from a musicologist perspective, and even from a person of faith. And so this podcast, Around the Lakes, is not just going to be me and Elliott reminiscing. Those of you that are afraid that might be the end of this podcast. But it's actually going to be us delving into people that have, delving into a piece of music with people that are experts in this music. So do you want to talk about what piece we're going to be discussing first?
Well, we are going to be discussing Schubert's Mass in G. That's a bit of an inside joke. No, we are discussing Mozart's Mass in C minor. He wrote another large Mass in C minor when he was 12, but this is the well-known, as they call it, Great Mass in C minor, written when he was around 27. So that's going to be our piece for the next few episodes.
And this piece is a torso.
It is.
Talk to us about what that is.
You remember with Notre Dame, we just had these fabulous trips that were that were parts of our program. We went to Mexico City and Santiago, Leeds and London, and Italy. We spent about 20 days in Italy together. Treviso, Rome. Just a spectacular trip.
Yeah, amazing.
Well, this was even before I knew that the Mass was going to be my dissertation. But we went to the Vatican. And as a kid, I remember just being enamored with Michelangelo. So I had, every time I could find an encyclopedia, I would pull out the M article and try to see what they had about him. And I had art books and all of this. So I made 3 trips to the Vatican because I thought, when am I ever going to see this much Michelangelo again?
Yeah, right.
And the Vatican has a sculpture called the Belvedere Torso. And the arms are missing, the head's missing, and the legs below the knee are missing. It actually might be cut off right above the knees. But it influenced some of the paintings on the altar wall in the Sistine Chapel, because Michelangelo studied the form of this sculpture. Anyway, it struck me that it didn't need a head or arms or legs. It felt like a complete work of art. And I feel in so many ways that the Mass feels that way. I feel like with the Requiem, maybe since he didn't get as far, you do need to flesh out a little more. But the C minor Mass ending with that return of the Hosanna, that double fugue, you get to that In Excelsis, and it really feels like you've sung a complete work. I didn't feel that there was anything lacking. And so I thought that it was pretty incredible that an artist could take a piece of music and it has such integrity and structural stability throughout that he didn't even need to finish it, and it still felt like a finished work. So that's something I mentioned in my dissertation. I think I actually started off with a correlation between the Belvedere Torso and the C minor Mass.
That's brilliant. It is incredible when you listen to that. I always go back to the John Elliott Gardner recording because to me that's just the reset. But it certainly does not seem like an excerpt or unfinished in any way. It just feels so monumental, like monumental. I remember when singing in the choir under your direction, and singing with all those undergrads in the tenor section, especially from Notre Dame, and the rambunctious way that he set the tenor line in so many places was just so fun to sing, and I can't wait to share some of those some of our favorite moments, and I look forward to the next episodes where we'll be able to do that. But what an incredible piece of music!
Yeah, and one enshrouded in mystery in some ways.
Yeah.
You know, like Mozart mentioned a vow and a promise, but he also had been part of von Schweden's musical circle in Vienna. So he wrote to his father and said, you know, von Schweden's giving me all these Bach manuscripts to take home, and I play them and I study them. And it begs the question, why did he write the Mass? And was he trying to prove something? Was he trying to show that he had learned these new Baroque elements? We just don't know. And I think it makes it even more powerful. I think at the very least we know that it was composed out of a personal nature.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we've talked about this, where I love seeing where what do composers consider their greatest works, or what are the works that were composed just because they had to.
Yeah.
And this is one that for some reason he didn't finish it, and we don't know why he didn't finish it. I remember Carmen said that she thought probably in the world of commissions, he had so many commissions that he just couldn't afford to spend time on something that he wasn't going to receive payment for. But the fact that he started it and he composed 30 minutes worth of music that he thought was worthy enough to recycle in that cantata later.
Yeah.
endlessly fascinating. And I think from the opening bars, this is not your standard classical era Kyrie. From the very beginning, you get an idea this work is of another realm.
Yes, and you know what I can't help but think, and I'm not a musicologist, but because I'm not, I can say this. Whenever I hear this work, I mean, it is just astonishingly beautiful and has just so many moments of, oh my God, I want to play that part again. Oh my God, I want to play that part again. And he was writing this at a time where he was estranged from his father, right? He wanted to marry Costanza, or I think he hadn't married her yet, right? Or did he marry her, and his dad was upset?
Well, you know, Emerson,
I think
I wrote the dissertation. And
yeah, I know.
Remember?
No, I think it was that he had upset his father immensely by saying he was going to marry Costanza.
That sounds.
And then he took her to visit, and that's the whole, like, was the mass performed then, or was it ever performed? And I guess Costanza, you were telling me this morning.
Yeah, there's some ideas that the work wasn't performed, because in letters from Mozart's sister and Costanza, they mention performing a mass, but they don't say which one. But Costanza later in life mentions the piece specifically.
To Novello, yeah.
To Vincent Novello, and she says that it was performed in Salzburg.
Which I think we probably should take her word for it. I mean, honestly,
I would think so.
Since the soprano part was written for her, right?
She did, and if I remember correctly, there were some issues with the higher notes. And I believe in the organ score, it was transposed down a half step at the last minute.
Oh, wow.
Because she was having trouble with some of the upper range.
Oh, my gosh.
So I think the Mass in C minor, ironically, when it was performed, was the Mass in B minor.
Yes, that's right. I did remember hearing about this. Oh, my gosh.
But yeah, what an absolute monumental piece. And I agree with you. There's not a movement that, as a conductor, there was not a movement that I was dreading. Yeah. I think sometimes there's pieces you conduct where there might be 3 or 4 movements that are absolute gold, but then you have a few you just kind of have to click through. Mm-hmm. But this one, every movement was, you could spend a lifetime with it. So I think it's just an absolutely remarkable piece that, had he finished it, really would have bridged that gap from Bach to Beethoven.
Well, and I was going to finish by saying that, you know, because of that issue with his father and him marrying the soprano that he had written this for, there was an element of, I got to make this so good. I've got to please my father, you know. And I feel that, and almost everything is just, it's so multi-leveled in the sense that, yes, a mass, you want to please the Father, you know, God. Mm-hmm. It's written in honor of God, but then on a personal level, there's this issue with his father, and then in the music itself is this glorious soprano part. I mean, is there a soprano solo in any of the repertoire, in any of the cantata masses that you know of, that is more glorious than this soprano part?
No.
I mean, I can't wait to talk to Sylvia to just because it's so monumental. I mean, the solo is just out of this world.
Well, and you could take that solo and you could put it on the piano, and you could have easily had a middle movement of a piano concerto.
Oh yeah,
it's just otherworldly.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, I think that's the beauty of this, of talking around a torso. When you visit a museum and you walk around it, you see it from different perspectives, and you know, just like we, you know, trudged around the lake. around the lakes has a way of changing your perspective about things as you move around something. And we hope you as listeners will feel that as we delve further into the Mozart Mass in C minor. So, yeah, we'll be discussing the torso of a piece, the Mass in C minor, with some really exciting guests in upcoming episodes. We're going to be talking to soprano Sylvia McNair, who did the recording of it with John Elliott Gardner. And I can't wait. I can't wait to talk to her about what she went through in the recording process, her life, and what this music did to her and for her. Because I don't think you can go through this piece of music without feeling absolutely changed in some fashion.
Absolutely. It's transformational.
So anyway, so she is our performer who's going to talk about the work. Talk to us about your guest.
I'm really, really thrilled about our guest conductor. This is a person that I met many years ago at the University of Cincinnati and had the privilege of working with him, playing for his conducting classes, and then ultimately having him help me through one of my recitals. This guest is the wonderful conductor Richard Sparks, who has made an incredible impression not only in academia, but also in the professional world, working in the United States, Canada, and Sweden. I think Richard is one of the most comprehensive musicians I've ever met. Reminds me quite a bit of Carmen in that regard. And I'm so looking forward to hearing his insights on conducting this work and just his general thoughts on music and how it relates to current culture in general. So I'm very, very honored that Richard agreed to do this. And I'm looking forward for you to get to meet him as well, because he had a impact on my life, even though it was for a short time many, many years ago.
I'm looking forward to it. And we'll have other artists and other musicologists and performers coming to talk about this piece with us. But we wanted to give you a taste of what these walks around the lake will be. And we hope that you like this concept. We hope that you share. And we hope that you keep coming along this Around the Lakes with Elliott and I, and get introduced to these amazing artists and musicologists who are infinitely moved and touched by these great pieces of music.
Our next episode features Pier Paolo Polzanetti. He's a professor of music at UC Davis. He's a musicologist. He's written numerous books, one of them Feasting and Fasting in Opera, the Italian Opera in the Age of the American Revolution, and he's the winner of the Lockwood Book Award, a fantastic musicologist and wonderful friend, and we're looking forward to that interview.
That's The Walk for this week with your hosts, Elliott Smith and Emerson Eads. If you liked it, follow them and tell a friend. Find them on Facebook at Around the Lakes or online at aroundthelakes.org. Thanks for walking with Elliott and Emerson. They'll see you around the lake next time. Around the Lakes wouldn't be possible without the SIU School of Music, the SIU College of Arts and Media, WSIU radio station manager Jeff Williams, Abby Eads, J.J. Wright, Encanto Recordings, University of Notre Dame photographer Matt Kishore, Sacred Music of Notre Dame, Elliott and Emerson's colleagues and singers, and the late Carmen Helena Tejas. I'm the editor and producer, Brad Palmer of WSIU Radio.